But we got now one of our guests for tonight is from the Word Balloon podcast. And his name is John Siuntres. John, hello and welcome.
Hey guys, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
John, yes.
Great to see you guys. And honestly, Jason, I thank you for extending the invite and all of you for making it happen. I love what you guys are doing, and it's a great cause, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Thank you, John. John, I had to. I caught your live stream. We talked about this before on the phone. I caught your stream with Tim Seeley, who's going to be on this weekend later on. And I was like, this guy just sounds great. And then I happened to see you on Facebook, and you're interviewing Rob Liefeld. I was like, wow, who gets Rob Liefeld? That's awesome. And you brought out like the best and fun parts of Rob Liefeld. He was so excited. He had his Jack Kirby stories. They're so interesting and cool. And then the next day you had our man who's coming on with us tomorrow. Yeah, Matt Fraction. And you guys, that conversation was on another level. Gore Vidal in the chat. If you're still here, Gore Vidal, check out that conversation with Greg Rucka. It's so good. You guys just talking all these talking points. I could listen to you two in particular forever. So
you guys are really kind, and I appreciate that. I've been, I've only started really doing YouTubing in the last 6 months or so, but I've been podcasting for 15 years. May of 2005 is when I got started. Yeah.
Wow. And, congratulations, though. That's huge.
And you were a radio DJ for a while. It's for 2 channels.
Oh yeah, right? No, 30 years in Chicago radio. That shows you how old I am. I worked at a rock station. I did commercials for the rock station, but I also did sports radio for The Score in Chicago for 10 years. And then I went to Sporting News Radio for 5 years. Kept doing commercials, missed being on the air. Started the podcast in 2005, thinking it would lead to a hosting radio job. And instead, Word Balloon has become its own thing. And I've done a couple TV projects where I've been a talking head on a show called Prophets of Science Fiction that was on Discovery's networks. And I did a show called The Unexplained. Now they've got the William Shatner one going right now, History Channel, but I wasn't on that one. I was on one with Jimmy Church, a great video blogger and podcaster, and it was an interesting conspiracy show. But History Channel produced it. It's only been on, I feel like David Hasselhoff, it's only been on in Germany and in Canada. So
I know that feeling because I've written for a Latvian metal blog before, actually digital magazine, I should say. So yeah, I know how it is to be in the obscure section of media.
Yeah, they love me in Dusseldorf. Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, dude, they love me in Latveria. I got to know how the Jeff Johns interview you had yesterday, how that went. I can't wait to hear that.
Again, I'm really lucky. I got in 2005. I met all these guys when they were writing, and then Robert Kirkman. Hey, I got an idea for Walking Dead. Yeah, whatever, Robert. Good luck with that. And then he blows up. And the same with Jeff Johns. I mean, Jeff was a hot writer at DC, but then obviously he graduated. He started as an assistant to Richard Donner, and did a couple of Richard Donner movies. 13 Blocks, I think, was one of them that he did.
Oh, cool.
But and then Conspiracy Theory, I remember he was an assistant on that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so he built his TV bona fides, and he is show running Stargirl, the new CW show.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. I hear nothing but great things.
So we talked, and he sent me the first 5 episodes, and I can honestly say, seeing most of the first or half of the first season, it's amazing.
Oh wow!
Really, and also. Sadly, for this time when we're all shut in and kind of bummed, it's a happy show.
Yeah, you got
that's terrific.
Wilton,
we need,
right?
we need happy shows,
Yeah,
it's a fun adventure. I mean, there's some dark stuff and there's a little conspiracy going on, and if you love the Justice Society, the DNA is all over it. I mean, obviously Jeff was part of that classic run. Also, James Robinson, who was another one of those co-writers on that JSA run, he's one of the writers on the show.
Awesome.
And I'm telling you, it focuses on the present, but the spirit and history of the JSA is very much part of this show. I don't think I'm spoiling too much saying that.
No,
and a lot of
exciting. Yeah, that's really exciting.
Yeah, I also want to know.
I wanted to pause because Greg is here, and I want to get Greg in. So, ladies and gentlemen, Greg Rucka. Thank you for joining us, Greg.
Hi, I'm early. That's cool. I thought I had a couple more moments to drink some tea before you.
Oh no, you can drink.
I got my tea. It's all right.
Oh yeah,
drink away.
I'm not going to stop.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know Greg Rucka, you're missing out on great writing. You're talking about Gotham Central. You're talking about Lois Lane, Wonder Woman,
Black Magic.
Black Magic.
Black Magic.
We got so many great things to talk about.
Nobody mentioned Lazarus.
Oh yeah,
Don't
Lazarus.
kid yourself in the
And-
pre.
Oh,
in the
dude,
pre-stuff.
though,
They're hip to Lazarus.
the Chinatown poster's an immediate win.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's right.
Thank you.
You bought yourself back in. You're fine.
You're in good graces now.
And and also of course creator of Stumptown on ABC, kicking ass,
right.
and also the co-creator of Batwoman, the comic, but certainly inspiring the CW show. So yeah, Greg's
Man,
an important
many
force in the
trades,
biz, man.
So many hats we're wearing, and
Yeah.
literally and physically.
Normally this one. I kind of feel like we should maybe clarify, because saying I created Batwoman is, like saying Bob Kane created Batman. It's not entirely correct. And potentially going to come back and bite me in the butt. So,
But you rebooted her, certainly.
The iteration that the show is based on
Right.
was in large part created by me and J.H. Williams III and overseen by the wonderful editor Michael Siglain. So, yeah, I'll wear that one. So
fantastic. Yeah, I love all your. What's that?
Jason,
Move me. Because chat's
It's
don't want
like
to block
volleyball,
you.
we just rotated.
Every once in a while, there's a link
see.
out, and I don't want to cover.
Yeah, I don't want to cover you up. Yeah. So,
I moved Greg over.
exactly. Yeah. Good. I'm glad you did. Thank you. Yeah. Sometimes I'll hide behind it.
yeah, I was like, freak out.
I'm freaking out, man. What kind of tea is this?
Like, yeah, well, wait a minute. It is Portland. Somebody could have gotten me CBD tea, but that shouldn't do that. And I didn't spike it, so it should just be Earl Grey. We should be fine.
I love all these female leads that you have in your comics. I think most people, most writers, I feel like stick to the male side of things, and here you are bringing, these female characters and giving them the proper spotlight. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask about specifically, and I'm a big fan of the Lois Lane run you're doing right now.
Thank you.
I've been shouting it out for a while.
So you're the person who's reading it.
I'm the guy.
It's nice to meet you.
It's very nice to meet you.
I'll tell Perks. He'll be delighted that I found you.
I've always said there's two things that I've wanted to see for the longest time is Ed Brubaker writing Slam Bradley, which happened in the Catwoman run for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to have a detective run by that, and then also Renee Montoya question book, and she's in Lois Lane. It's so amazing. So I'm finally getting my dream come true. Yeah.
The pairing of Lois and Renee in this run is so amazing, and I love the chemistry that you're creating. Can you talk a little bit about that chemistry?
Yeah, I mean, Lois needed a leg man, and one of the things that we had and John knows a little bit about this because they became ultimately what we referred to as the Metropolis City Council meetings. But we had a meeting, I want to say spring year before that. I can't. Time has lost all meaning.
It really has recently
in self-isolation. So,
yeah.
Hi, John. I'll get to that in a moment. But one of the things that we had discussed, Brian and Matt Fraction, myself, and Mike Cotton at that time, we had talked about initially these three books sort of feeding each other and working together. And one of the things that was really clear to me at the beginning was that a Lois Lane book needed to not be Superman's wife, Lois Lane. It needed to be entirely Lois's book. And in the way that, like way back in the day when I had done a turn on Wolverine, the idea there had been to say, well, this is what Wolverine is doing when he is not doing all the other stuff you see in all the other books, right? So this is not Wolverine with Cyclops or whoever else. This is just what Wolverine is doing when he's out being Logan.
Yeah.
And for this, it was like, no, we wanted, Lois's superpower is her reporting, is her tenacity and her courage and her intellect. Those are all very difficult things to show in a comic. Mm-hmm. And There is nothing more boring. Like one of the very first decisions I came to on the book was that you would actually never read anything Lois had written. Right? Because I didn't want anybody to get to a point where they were, I'm turning the page, and a double page, wonderful Mike Perkins art, and a 3,000-word essay in 8-point font. Right? Which is pretty much punching the reader straight in the throat and saying, go home. We don't want you. Yeah. We don't want you in this book anymore. Right. So that meant that you had to see the results of Lois's work, and you needed to see everything around the work, and you needed to see her doing the work, and you could see the effects of the work.
Yes.
But I think the only time you're actually going to hear a direct quote from anything she has written is actually in issue 12. And it's literally when Perry is copy editing her and telling her that brutal does not have 2 O's in it. And Clark calls her on it later and says, "You do it on purpose, don't you? You do it to make sure he's reading."
I love it.
But it was pretty quickly thereafter, right, that I was like, okay, well, then she's going to have somebody, because having Superman, never mind the fact that Clark is doing his own reporting, but if Superman is if Superman's your investigator, you're kind of wasting Superman.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, well, honey, there's a tsunami, about to hit the east coast of Japan. Or I could help you with this investigation. If Lois is like, yeah, but this is more important. Lois is kind of horrible. And Lois is not horrible. Lois knows who she married. So there were certain truths that I knew at the start. And one of those truths was that she does not lean on Clark. She does not lean on Superman. Mm-hmm. She,
very independent.
Yeah. And that's not to say she accepts no help. She can't do everything herself. And it is the DC universe, and it is a comic book. So occasionally she needs somebody who can throw a punch and take a punch.
Right.
And it's not that Lois cannot throw a punch or take a punch, but I certainly wasn't going to make her suddenly the world's greatest martial artist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was going to be cheating. She wasn't going to suddenly get a canary cry in issue 2.
Right. It's most definitely a day in the life kind of story. And I appreciate your deconstruction of the characters that you write. I think you have a full grasp and understanding of them and how they work, including your Batman.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I told John, I think before the series launched, because people were like, well, what's it going to be about? What's it going to be about? And I was like, it's about Lois. Mm-hmm. I mean, Lois, there is
Chicago, by the way.
Yeah, and she remains all the way through, by the by. We end the last issue. This is some spoilers, but issue 12 begins very much. I know a former studio head who's a producer on the Old Guard that I've been talking to a lot. And he refers to it as rhyming, right? But it is a rhyme. Issue 12 begins and rhymes with a lot of things that we do in issue 1. So there were certain things at work there, but it was meant to be a character study more than anything else.
It's the Lois book we've been waiting for literally at least 20 years.
Well, I hope to God so.
What's that?
I hope so.
Well, yeah. Well, literally, because she's the most interesting citizen of the DC universe, and so many times the inclination is to take an interesting citizen and slap a cape on him, and it's like Lois doesn't need a cape. Lois is capable. That, as Greg has explained to me, this is why Clark Kent knows she's the most fascinating woman in the world. That's why she has Superman's attention and his heart.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
That was another element that was really important to us, I think, was that I never wanted at any point in the issue. I mean, I said it's literally like if you read my first script for, Lois Lane 1, I say very clearly, this is a kissing book. There will be kissing. They are going to kiss a lot. You engage certain truths, and more than one person has pointed out that Lois has now been married to Clark longer than she wasn't, right, in the history of the DC universe. That's the status quo. You don't like it, you don't have to, but that's what it is. And in the same way that you're going to accept that Superman can fly and bullets bounce off him, and the Batmobile does not get caught in traffic,
Yeah.
you are required to embrace that. You may not like it, but the truth of the DC universe is, and Superman's not going to get divorced. He's Superman.
I feel like they tried that before, and it wasn't going the way they wanted. And when Bendis came back, I feel like they were going to try that again because they had that little small separation period, and in the Man of Steel book, and I think he was trying to test out the waters because he had the new firefighter lady. He had all his new females.
He wasn't testing. He knew from the start, because one of the things we talked about at that initial meeting,
the city council,
was that he said people are going to think that I'm breaking them up.
Oh yeah, that's so great. I love this inside baseball. Thank you.
Yeah, but. And I echo it. I'm sure he said it in one of the books as well, but I echo it in either issue 1 or 2, where, the conclusion is we're not pretending that we are a normal married couple, right? I am not going to sit at home, says Lois, and raise our boy and bake him pies. All right. That's not who I am. It is disingenuous to our relationship. It's disingenuous to our son, right? It is denying the people we are. Yep. And by the same token, if you have a Lois Lane who's like, well, Clark, you're always running off to save people. She has a problem with that. She married the wrong guy.
Right.
Yeah. Right. That's on her. She knew what she was getting. I can't remember if the issue is dropped yet. I think it may be issue 10. There's literally a conversation between Clark and between Lois and Superman. And I differentiate because he's in costume.
Okay.
And like 4 times in the conversation, in the middle of the sentence, he just goes, takes off, and you see her hair just go.
He's back a second later. Yeah.
And it's literally a panel of her going.
Yep.
And then he comes back, and by the 3rd time, she just continues the sentence. Right? There's just.
You can hear it. He's fine. Yeah.
Well, and it's just like, this is what it is. This is.
Yes.
This is, some days he's going to run out and he'll be back for 5 minutes. And sometimes he's like, you know what? It just keeps happening every 3 seconds. I'm sorry, babe. This guy was trying to commit suicide. There was an armed robbery. This refinery just blew up. She can't be there being like, sit still. She's got to be like, no, it's cool.
But isn't this great, guys? Because this is, forgive me, I didn't mean to step on you, John, but this is what I love about the evolution of comic writing in the last, I'd say 20, 25 years, probably 20 only, where writers like Greg and Brian and Matt Fraction, who make up this Metropolis City Council, they're giving us the conversations that were always subtext, but now they're right there in front. And that's what makes these characters interesting and three-dimensional and more real. And that's what I appreciate about what these people are doing, not just currently on Superman, but go to Greg's run on Wonder Woman, go to his Batman stuff. You learn more about the people.
It's the stuff that I find interesting. And I fully recognize, there are many people who have read my stuff and said not enough punching.
You can't please everybody. Yeah.
Well, or actually the criticism often is there's not enough action. Right. And what they actually are saying is there wasn't enough violence.
Yeah. Right.
And it's like, guys, action isn't the same thing as violence.
Right.
So
I was going to say one of my favorite moments, and we can get on to other comics. I'm sorry to make Lois Lane the focus at the beginning here, but
I'm happy to talk about her, man. Like now I finally feel like I can. So
when Lois's life was risked and the police are all at the house, the apartment taking care of her, and Superman arrives and he blasts past them all and gets that moment with her. And for me, this is when it's a Lois comic and not a Superman comic. She says, no, there's nothing you can do, but there's a bunch of guys out there that would love to talk to you. And they're
waiting for you to show up.
That moment got me way more than a fist fight or a punch. It was a gut punch. And it was that moment that made you realize what she brings to him that he's missing.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Because I like I say, the marriage has to work from that to me is far more interesting. This idea that when people are happy together, like if they're married, that ends the drama, that ends the relationship. I'm very fond of the issue 3 sequence where she calls him out, after the shooting, and is like, you know what you did. And he's like, what? And she's like, don't you even, and he has to own it. And she's like, some things you can't do.
It makes the relationship real. It makes and it's not just Superman and then she's kind of down here. She's the one he rescues and whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, this makes it an equal footing.
Yeah. I mean, it would be fun to do Lois Lane's husband Superman book.
That would be hilarious. Oh my God.
Catherine Immerman, there was an 80-page Superman giant a few years ago.
Yeah.
And Catherine Immerman wrote this killer 10-page story where Lois had the flu. And Clark, not Superman, Clark is running around trying to make her feel better. And it's classic Clark is a klutz. And the whole time, Lois is just rolling her eyes like, yeah, all right.
No, you and Fraction got to team up for that one. That's too funny. That is too funny. Yeah,
I can't keep up with Matt. I've said this before. If you define genius by those people who can look at the exact same thing you're looking at, and they see it just like 3 degrees differently, and that shift just opens up whole new worlds. That's Matt, man. I think one of the reasons he and I get along so well, because I'm not Brian, but I understand how Brian does what he does, right? What Brian does, he does exceptionally well. And with a tool set and a honed skill set that I have incredible envy over, but I get it, right? I look at him and I know how he makes it happen. I have no clue how Matt Fraction does what he does.
I didn't realize what a brilliant person he was until I saw John talking to him. Because you never know the man behind the name. You just know them from their works, and everyone's yours and his works are fantastic. But really hearing him talk and the conversation John and Fraction had was just one of the best conversations I heard in a long time.
This is what Greg and I normally do too. Honestly, I'm not just saying this because Greg and I are on camera right now. Greg, Brian, and Matt, and Kelly Sue for that matter as well.
Awesome.
We all love the same stuff. And we talk about the books and then spend another, sometimes 45 minutes, sometimes another couple hours, as you saw, Jason, the other night. And Greg and I have lapsed in the same thing as if Brian and Kelly Sue. And it's like, what are you reading? What are you watching? What are you listening to? And
it was about 2 a.m. and you're like, oh, yeah, we're almost done. I'm like, yeah, this should be almost done. And you guys went, I think, to like 4 a.m. I had to be at work
another 90 minutes.
And I was like, I could have kept going forever.
It was a 3.5 hour talk.
It's like you guys were like my secret best friends. So, I was like, it was so good.
Well, and truly, honestly, meeting these guys as a fan and then becoming friends with them has just been an incredibly nice thing, and I know it's sincere, and it means the world to me because, again, as I always tell Greg and all of them, because they're all in Portland, it's like, man, if we all lived on the same street, you guys would. I'd be the thing that never left.
Get rid of me, yeah.
Get just out of here. Enough. And really, Jen Van Meter, Greg's wife, same way. Elisa Bendis, same way. They're just really they're great people. They really are great people. So I'm embarrassed.
Awesome.
I keep seeing the questions in the comments.
Yes. Yeah, we should probably get to the chat. We've been ignoring it too long. Yeah.
Should we scroll back? I mean,
we could definitely scroll back and look at some of those.
Oh, good question, Gomer. What's up with the
old Gomer have one? Sorry. Go ahead and click on that one again, Drew. Sorry, I was picking it.
There you go.
Good.
You guys picking what's up with the old guard movie?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to read it? Please go ahead.
You get the answer. We can all read. That's fine. Yeah.
Well, let's not make assumptions. Yeah.
He found me out today.
So I don't know if you can see. I am wearing my old guard. I'm wearing my old guard production sweatshirt, sweat jacket here. Let's see if I can actually turn around. You should be able to see the labels.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's outstanding.
So that was a gift from the director, Gina Prince Bythewood, and the editor, Terry Shropshire. The film is now locked. You should start seeing promotion. I am told mid to late May. There is a release date for this summer. It will be direct to Netflix.
Awesome.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So it says, hope the family are well. Are you planning any future DC post Lois Lane? I know of the Black Label book about Diana's daughter, but it's been quiet.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's walk that backwards. So the Diana's daughter book is still one I want to do. I wrote a script. Well, but there's a long reason for this. I was late on the script. I was not happy with the script. And I think the editor who was overseeing it, when I sent him what I had, because I'd been given effectively an AT&T gun to the head, drop dead deadline on it, kind of wisely was like, maybe not. Yeah, maybe wait. So right now it's on hold. I figure the way that will ultimately iterate out is once I get some bandwidth, which hopefully is going to be actually fairly soon, I will actually write the whole thing. And once I have all of it written, I will give it to DC. And if DC wants to pay me for it, that'd be great. There's no guarantee of that. I have had a couple calls about post Lois work. Nothing has been agreed upon yet.
Wanted to shout out the Downright Nerdy podcast. They
Hi,
donated
Downright Nerdy,
$10. Sorry, yeah, we'll go back to the
Hi, Downright Nerdy podcast.
the group layout. But that $10 donation is going to the Hero Initiative all weekend long, but then all the time on our channel, actually. All donations to Super Chats go to the incredible organization, the Hero Initiative.
Where can you donate?
In the chat on YouTube, when you're watching live, down in the corner, there's a little dollar symbol. Not on our screen in the StreamYard, but on YouTube itself.
Okay.
And all the money, like I was saying, they'll go to the Hero Initiative all weekend long. There's going to be ways to donate to the Red Cross and the Hero Initiative as part of what Mainframe Comic-Con is doing. Nothing, with no money coming to us. It's all going to these great charities. So thank you, Greg, for spending time so that this can happen.
Yeah,
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, Greg, I was going to go on. I'm just because I'll keep going.
I just feel like we're also so proud, being members of the Comic Corps, because that has been our from the get-go, is all our donations, any super chats have always gone to the Hero Initiative. And I think now people are aware of that, and we're getting more attention because of that, and we have more people helping out, because it's all about the love for comic creators and writers and artists and those in that need, and so on tomorrow you can actually go to the Mainframe Comic-Con website, and there's an actual big donate button. So feel free to use that. But if you want to be part of the discussion, like the chat here, come to the Comic Corps on YouTube and hit that super chat button down there.
Excellent.
There's a lot of good Batman questions going out there. It says, Greg, is there a character you haven't written yet, though, that you want to?
Yeah, one or two. But I have been so fortunate in the 20 years that I've been doing this that I've gotten to play in almost everybody's yard. And play with just about everybody's toys. I would the only characters that I can think of off the top of my head that I would have liked that, and I've gotten to flirt with each of them, but I haven't gotten to really do deep dives, are both over actually at Marvel. And the odds of me ever doing anything at Marvel at this point are very low.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why, but I ain't their flavor.
Okay.
Interesting.
And I never have been.
That's shocking, though, because, again, like things like The Punisher, you and Chichetto did such a great run in recent vintage. And, and certainly, again, other. I'll tell you, man, and I understand when you were saying some people want more action, but your Thinking Man's Wolverine was really a favorite of mine.
Yeah, but I have the distinction of being like the only writer ever to have taken Wolverine out of the top 10 of Diamond. So, I mean, I wear that badge with some pride. Like, why is Wolverine? And the thing about Wolverine was he wasn't even talking, so.
This one says, do you know why they didn't bring the religion of crime and that whole Victorian appearance of Alice into the TV show for Batwoman?
I have no insight into the choices they made on this show. I mean, none whatsoever. I don't even, I can't even begin to guess why. It could have been as simple as they thought it would look dumb. It could have been as simple as the religion of crime is actually kind of a hard thing to understand if you really sort of look at it, and it was an idea that Grant introduced. And like a lot of ideas of Grant Morrison's, if he's not there to curate it, it kind of sits there and everybody treats it like it's plutonium. And because they're all sort of like, I'd love some of that because I think I could make a nuke, but it'll probably kill me. And I barely got what he was after when he introduced the concept. But that is actually a very interesting question because it actually is going to be referenced in Lois.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow. How about that?
Religion of Crime is referenced in Lois. So, yeah, there you go.
Very cool.
Detective Comics question: were there any future plans for the Legion of Assassins in Detective, or were you satisfied with that story and how it finished out?
I'm trying to remember what story you're referring to. I need help there. We're going to have to come back to that because I genuinely don't remember. The sad thing is, I appreciate the Batman questions. I haven't written Batman in over 15 years.
Oh, no, it's been a while.
Well, and also when John mentioned too that boy, it'd be great to get a Renee Montoya question book. We did get a nice backup run with Greg and Cully doing it in the back of Batwoman.
Yeah, when Batwoman showed up,
and that's collected for people who are looking for something to read during the shut-in.
The pipeline trade,
and also, by the way, of course, the Old Guard, the first volume of the Old Guard from Oni.
No, Image.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
It's all right. Yeah, no, it's all right. I almost did that too. It's like, no, wait, there's Stumptown. Oni's Stumptown.
That's right.
Image is the Old Guard. Yeah,
3 volumes of Stumptown waiting for you. Yeah.
4.
See?
This is why you need me here, John. This is why you need me.
And I heard we can expect more Black Magic soon. Is that correct?
In point of fact, yes. I have been remiss. I need to get Nicola the back half of issue 16, which should tell you how many issues are now drawn. She has gotten everything set. And we have, I think, solicits for 12 already dropped. So
excellent. I have all my A covers, man. I've been working on my B covers. I got this prison one is just beautiful. I got the chance to meet her a handful of times. I love Jenny. I chat her up each time I see her, and she's just one of my favorites and a lovely person inside and out.
Yeah, she is genuinely wonderful. Like one of those people you meet and you go like, wait a minute, you don't get to be that nice and that talented.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like if you follow her on Instagram,
her dog pictures,
it's her process pictures that blow.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how she does eyes the way she does.
Interesting.
They are the most remarkable things.
It's
stunning. She is incredible. So yeah, I am.
Your work on Black Magic, me in particular, I love just the mysterious, and I'm just drawn towards like the occult and stuff. It's fun for me. I have like a original Aleister Crowley, tarot deck, from the 70s. Oh yeah, I got like this book on like African Black Magic from like the 60s. Like I'm just like super into that stuff. And so it's really fun for me to see you cover that stuff, plus your detective spin on things, because that's my favorite genre is detective stuff too. So it's just more of that, please. I'm so excited for more Black Magic. Yeah, so
cool.
Thank you.
Well, hopefully that'll maintain when the issues start coming out.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it will. Yeah.
But yeah, the next 5 are going to come out in sequence. Like you will get them monthly, because the goal was always to do like 5-issue arcs and then take the trade break and then come back for the next 5.
So this will be like the first half then of the second season?
That's effectively it. Yeah, is
cool.
That's a really good way to put it. And then the only question about the back half of that is really Nicola's schedule. Which I cannot speak to because I'm not her.
Yeah.
Thank you to Daymares for another great donation to the Hero.
Thank you guys.
Deanie, I was gonna get to Deanie Dude's other half of his question. His detective question was League of Assassins.
Okay, you are going way back. That's what you're referring to.
With Whisper Adair and the Gotham gangs.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Sherman set the Wayback Machine. Yeah, I had actually had a whole lot of other stuff that I had wanted to do there. But one of the things that was going on in the back group at that time was the coming of the infinite events. And that led to some derailment. And then there was a change because Denny O'Neil had been my editor, and Denny stepped down, and Bob Schreck came in, and Schreck effectively shook up the group. He tilted it on its side and shook it up. And not to tell tales out of school, but he wanted me off of detective, but he wasn't willing to fire me.
Wow.
So things on that book, the back half of that detective run, which I don't know if it's any good because I can't read those issues. But it was a very, very weird time and a weird process. But the thing is, you leave any title, especially when you're working on something like Wonder Woman or Batman or Superman, there's always more stories to tell. That's the power of it, right? So you can literally ask a variation of that question on almost any book I have written, and the answer will almost always be, "Oh yeah, there were more stories. I always had more stuff." I had, or if I didn't have the story, I had the idea, or if I didn't have the idea, I had the inkling of an idea. Because
they move beyond the story in the book that you're telling, because they go on.
And I like to think that if you're doing the job well, then each story leads to more. So when I left Wonder Woman after the Rebirth run, and I left honestly because I had completed the terms of the contract, and we had done 25 issues in a year, and it was grueling.
Bi-weekly, yeah.
Yeah, and my other books were suffering as a result. And DC had said, "Would you like to stay and do another 25?" And I was like, "I thought we were only doing the double ship for 1 year."
I just ran a marathon. Give me a break.
And they literally came back and they said, "Yeah, but it's doing so well, we're going to keep it up." And I was like, "I can't. I have to step back."
Guys, this is my independent editorial opinion. I think many have left the big two because of the double ship. Because Marvel, while it didn't do the double ship, would do 18 issues a year. Mm-hmm. And that's a grind, man. And Greg, you can obviously relate and say you're working on story A with artist 1, and then at the same time doing story B with artist 2, not just in the case of Rebirth, but I know talking to others at Marvel and DC was the same problem, and Nightmare.
Well, and that was part of the solution to why the Rebirth run was framed the way it was that, I knew for a fact that if Liam was supposed to be, quote unquote, the regular artist, he would fall behind, and then there would be fill-ins.
Yep.
And it's not a great way to treat a collaborator, because what it does is it says to the artist you're collaborating with, you are a lesser part of the collaboration. Mm-hmm. Your investment in it needs to be, by definition, less, because some other artist is going to literally be asked to come in and, quote unquote, fill in.
Right.
Which is telling them that their contribution is also not the same.
Right.
Well, and I spoke to Klaus Janson in Baltimore Comic-Con, and he was talking about when Daredevil went to twice a month when Frank Miller was doing it, and how he ended up having to go from inker to, in some ways, like drawing pages just to help Frank get through 2 a month, and how grueling and difficult that was for the both of them. And I can't even imagine.
It's hard to maintain quality at that speed. It is a relentless pace.
And isn't it great now too? Sorry, Greg, that the business has changed where you can do stuff for DC and Marvel, and at the same time do your creator-owned stuff and get your own ideas out there without the worry of you can't use Villain X because he's in this book and all that nonsense. Look,
I can kill whoever I want to in Lazarus.
Absolutely. And by the way, Lazarus, really a book for our times.
There's a great Lazarus question when it comes to creator owned here. Gore Vidal is one of our great moderators on our channel, and he's got this great comment about how.
And I like the avatar and the name.
Right,
absolutely.
Yeah. Gore Vidal would get along with us as well. He has this kind of like the same interest. I love Gore Vidal.
He mentioned Lazarus to me a bunch about being this book that brought him back to comics after being away for so long. And he said, "What was the thinking behind the brilliant origin story for the dragon?"
Oh, so that was done with a frequent collaborator of mine, Eric Troutman, who is a much underrated writer and who is also a fabulous designer. One of the things, for instance, that he brings to Lazarus specifically is every computer interface, every screen you see, all of that depth of technology is designed by Eric and built by Eric. And to such an extent that there is a sequence in Lazarus Risen 5 that Michael is drawing now that relies on, in the series we have, sort of this ever-present media, always-on television thing called The Post. And he redid the Post interface for one of the characters. So you are in their room and you see it, right? And he propagated it with everything they were reading, everything their correspondence, and then the games they were playing and the leaderboards on them and so on. And you will never see it in the comic. It's not big enough to reproduce. Like, literally, I am on him to, like, no, you have to blow this up so we can, like, put it up online for people to use as a wallpaper. The detail is incredible. And one of the things that we've talked about, and we were talking about this we were talking about it last week in another sort of online forum. Eric was saying, and I agree with this, he's like, even if you can't read it, you know if it's there. Right? When you're reading a comic book and the computer screen is just, look, it's got a blue glow and there's nothing on it, it kind of pushes you out a little bit. And if you look at these screens and you can't see everything there, but you know there is stuff there, it adds to the texture and the depth of the world. It makes the world that much more plausible, I think. So with the Zhmei, the deal with the Zhmei, with the dragon, is that unlike the other Lazari in the world, he is a pure propaganda tool. His goal is, and his existence is solely to terrify people. He is not a he is not a tactical or strategic weapon. He is a psychological one. And that's and consequently he is if you don't know the series, he's capable of doing some pretty horrific things. We see the evidence of him doing some really monstrous crimes. So the question then becomes, well, how do you get somebody to do that? And that's how you get that origin story. And one of the thematics of Lazarus, if you really, if you read the whole thing, one of the things that the series is about is actually cycles of abuse. Forever is abused emotionally, and one can argue physically. If you're up in the series to where we are now, you are seeing the same thing happening with 8. We saw it with Joaquin. We see it in the way the families treat each other. The implication is there with Sonia Bittner, even though we haven't spent a lot of time in the Bittner family. So one of the thematics at work is that these are all cycles of abuse and the results of abuse and what happens when you're abused and how you can escape abuse and how you can heal from abuse. Well, the Zhmei is a product of extraordinary abuse. That's how you create a monster. You create a monster. You create a monster the same way you make a dog bite you. You hit it over and over and over again. And eventually the dog is going to turn around and say, I no, you don't bite. And then if you're an idiot, you go, dog bit me. Yeah. When you do it with malice and with calculation, I can think of few things that are more evil. To willingly do that to another human being is to willingly try to make them not human, to take away their humanity. So yeah, it's a brutal story. And consequently, one of the things you get in that story, it's a single issue. We did a miniseries called Lazarus X plus 66. And this was the last issue in that miniseries. It was about the Shmang. And one of the things you see is that he is actually, when he is not playing his part, trying to be the most human he can be. He is refined and he is polite, you know, and in many ways very traditionally, generously Russian, except when he's got to be the dragon. And when he's the dragon, he's wearing baby skulls and has, you know, smeared with blood and feces. And you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, get it away. So
I'll say one thing, things I like about Lazarus is, sadly, because of the pandemic, you can kind of see where governments would fail and these kind of power brokers would evolve. And of course, we're already thinking that in terms of the way conglomerates have certainly taken over the control of the world. And I don't mean in any conspiratorial way. It's very obvious. It happens every day.
No, it's not a conspiracy when you go, what was the relief bill? Right? I mean, that's not a conspiracy, guys. It's not a conspiracy to say they bailed out Boeing.
Right.
And Ruth's Chris got $20 million
for small business loans.
Which they which they returned recently. Thankfully, they returned that, but still, that's a drop in the bucket.
Only because they were exposed.
Yeah, exactly. Only because they got called on it. So it's not a conspiracy theory. You can decide. You can decide to ignore it if you want. You can pretend that's not the world.
Yep.
But pretending it's not the world won't make it go away. You know, you're just being. You're just being, you know, a damn flamingo sticking your head in the sand.
Right. If anything, it's being allowed to happen longer or more powerfully, you know, and when you ignore
sorry to bring everybody down with that.
Hey, got hashtag real talk. You know, we need that sometimes.
It's my bread and butter, John.
Well, I know that. Greg and I spent skull sessions doing this. We don't have to bum these guys out, man.
Can you tell us anything about the Lazarus optioned stuff happening?
Yes. I cannot tell you the name of the guy who has submitted the latest pilot and is going to be the showrunner. Okay. I can tell you that the pilot, the breakdown for 102, and the series Bible have now been submitted to the powers that be at Amazon. And yes, I am well aware of the irony of Lazarus being done at Amazon. Thank you, Chris. And now we got to wait to see if they want to do it or not. We're in an interesting place because, ironically, you know, whereas comics creators and certainly comics retailers and absolutely as comics consumers, we are taking it on the chin. You know, so many people have been laid off or have been furloughed or being garnished or reduced hours. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Hollywood, oddly, is stockpiling. They are on a buying spree right now. They are trying to acquire things. I heard somebody describe it as a bunch of development execs are desperately trying to justify their existence right now.
Yeah.
So they're literally trying to buy anything they can. But one of the other things that's allowing is that, you know, if you can get a virtual writer's room going, you can have your scripts ready so that as soon as the go comes, you're in production. And much like, I mean, in many ways, there are a lot of similarities to making mainstream comics, right? Because in mainstream comics, and it goes back to what we were talking about, if you're double shipping and the fill-in art, the quality of the book comes second. It's got to be there on Wednesday.
Deadline art. Deadline art.
It's got to be there on Wednesday. The book has to come out. And if it does not come out, they will fire you and get somebody who will make sure it comes out. Right?
That's right.
And in the same way, you know, if Hollywood is going like, we got episodes, you know, this is the season, it debuts September 7th, and you need to have your next 6 every 7 days thereafter. It don't matter who's sick. Right? It doesn't matter what broke down. It doesn't matter if the script sucked.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's got to be there. So honestly, you know, I'm really hoping that they will pull the trigger on Lazarus, because if they do, it just creates that much more opportunity to make sure all the scripts for the first season are going to be, you know, as good as they can be. And
right, now's the time. Yeah.
And if they do pull the trigger, it will be for the full season, right? Amazon's not going to go, let's try 3 and see if people like them.
Yeah.
They're going to order the season. So
that is exciting.
I'm optimistic. It has been a really, really long road, but you know, the people I'm working with there, and in particular, I can't say who he is, but I will say this showrunner has been phenomenal. You know, the one thing that you want, because when somebody comes along and says, "Hey, we love Stumptown, we'd like to make a TV show," what they're really saying is, we like Dex an awful lot. We really like this character and we like this world. But they're not saying, and therefore we want to adapt the 4 stories that you have done, because that would be an episode and a half of television, number 1, right? And that's not what the buy is. But when you go into something like Lazarus, you are not acquiring, you are taking all of it. Right. The idea is you want to translate all of it in the same way that, you know, why The Last Man's in production now. Right.
Yes.
And that's not just a story about the last guy on Earth. That's not what they're buying. That's not what Brian is making. Right. They are adapting. And that's the key word. They're adapting this series for this format. So, and that's what Lazarus is. That's going to be an adaptation. And one of the things that's so exciting about it is that comics, for all of their many strengths, also have one crucial weakness, which is they limit your focus, right? You know, we had a letter recently in the back, I ran it in the back of one of the issues, where somebody was saying, you know, why are we not seeing more stories about the waste? And it's like, well, 1, because they'd be unrelentingly depressing, and 2, because I don't have the real estate. You know, I don't. I got 44 pages now every 3 months. And in those 44 pages, I need to move these broader stories forward in a certain way. And those stories center primarily on Forever. When you get to do television, now I get to talk about why Bethany is the way she is, and the fact
that's exciting.
That
wow,
Johanna has been having an affair with the same guy now for 4 years in the series. It's never been on screen. It's never been on panel. Nobody knows this. I've got a Discord server for Lazarus, and this came up like 3 months ago, and I was like, oh yeah, Joe, you know, she's having an affair with this guy. And immediately people were like,
oh yeah,
who? They were like, and I was like, I'm not telling you. They're like, have we seen him? I'm like, yeah, actually, you have seen him. You've seen who this person is.
I just recently found out about your Discord, and I got to get in there. That's awesome.
When you do, remember that when you come in, there's
don't get stuck in the door.
You have to register.
Yeah, don't get stuck in that door.
We get a whole lot of people who show up, and then they're like, this is really boring. Nothing's going on. It's like, read the message.
It's like face palm. Yeah.
Read the message.
Yeah. Please come in the house. Don't stand outside. Yeah.
I saw somebody had asked if there's word about a Stumptown season 2. We are still waiting to hear. But, you know, if you shake Magic 8-Ball, it says signs .ds. Whoa.
That's great.
My screensaver just came on. Hang on. There we go. Let me move my mouse some more. So yeah, we're optimistic that it will.
You know, on the one hand, Greg, when you told me that it was going to be on ABC, I'm like, that's awesome. But at the same time, I'm like, ooh, over-the-air network. Man, look what happened to Constantine. Look what happened to look what happened to Brian Fuller's Pushing Daisies. Really high concept stuff that is really brilliant. May not, you know, grab it. And again, Stumptown is fun, but again, it's like you know, you can see somebody going, all right, it's a police procedural or a detective procedural with a woman. Yeah, that's great. I've seen it before. Flip. Well, you know, and they don't know.
Well, and honestly, that's, I think, that was my biggest gripe with season 1, is that it felt like, oh, it's just a detective procedural with a woman. And if you really look at it, apparently not a very talented one. Like, you know, Dex is not a good detective. And it strikes, you know, and I think if we get a season 2, we're going to be able to course correct some of that. Like, it bothers me that the only time we saw Sue Lin behind a desk was in the pilot.
Good point. Yeah.
You know, and then there are 17 more episodes, and she never, once again, she was never behind the desk. She was never in her office. And, you know, I was talking to somebody today, and I was like, you know why she knits, right? You know why she's got the knitting needles? It's so she's always got a weapon in hand.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I mean, you do not mess with Sue Lin, right? Sue Lin will gut you. And you know, so I am actually really excited for a second season, because some of the things that have been discussed and some of the things that I'm privy to right now make me very excited. And honestly, the cast of the show is one of the best on television.
I was going to say, the whole cast, but Colby's great. She really, she gets it. That's the easy way to say it. You know?
Yeah, no, she's wonderful, and she's also appallingly nice.
Awesome.
I mean, it's the Jenny.
Disgusting.
It's the Jenny Frison problem. It's the exact same thing. It's like, but Troutman actually met her when they were shooting the pilot here in Portland. We went to set, and we got to set. It was my first time going to the Stumptown set. They were like, "Yeah, bring your friend." We pull up, and Kobe. Like, they radio us in, right? Because when you come up, they've got it blocked off. Oh, okay, it's Rucka. Can you park over here? So I come in and I park, and before I'm out of the car, there's Kobe, and I never met her. So apparently, she had asked if I was coming to set, and then was like, "Oh, you know, let me know when you get," and then came over. And then proceeded to show Eric and me around, and was like, "It's like, aren't you working?" She was like, "Oh yeah, don't work." So
we'll get to it. Yeah.
we finish the day, and Eric looks at me and he says, "She is so Canadian." You know, like
drinking syrup.
Yeah, well, in the nicest complimentary, you know, polite, gracious way. But
yes, in a way that Americans aren't, sadly.
Yeah, right.
Well, and you know how you meet some people and you're like, "Oh, you're on best behavior. You're pretending."
You got an ankle monitor. Yeah.
Yeah, she ain't. Yeah, she ain't ankle monitor. That's who this woman is.
That's awesome.
And it was amazing. It was really.
I can't even fathom what's it like to, you know, first create something and have it come out, you know, whether, you know, physical media, art or whatever, but then go from a comic book to a live production and just seeing it physically, you know, manifested in front of you. That's got to be an incredible feeling.
It is. You say incredible, surreal.
Yes, that is the more correct word. Yeah, absolutely.
They do a thing. Let me see if I've actually got Old Guard right next to me here, and I don't know if the image is here. They've got so they do a thing. You know, the things you learn when they're making a movie, and they have all the actors, they've done all the casting, and they're getting ready to go to start production. They will have the hair and makeup and costume day, right? Where you see all the props and you see everybody and everybody's in costume and so on. And Old Guard started shooting in the UK, started shooting in England, I want to say late March this year. No, late March last year, obviously, because late March this year would be impossible. So late March 2019. And like 2 days before, the producer sends me a photo. And the photo he sends me is of the 5 actors in costume, but they're all replicating that pose.
Can we blow that up, guys?
Can you see it?
Whoever's directing.
Whoa,
don't switch it. Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Boom.
There. Okay, wait. There. So there's the full image, right?
Wow.
So that's all 5 of them. And I get this picture texted to me on my phone. And that was the moment when I was like, and I wrote it. right? I mean, I wrote the screenplay. It's not just that I wrote the comic. I wrote the screenplay. And so I knew they were making the movie. It wasn't a shock, right? And I get this text, and I remember I had to sit down.
It's like,
because for a second I didn't know what I was looking at. And then I was like, wait a minute, turn the phone. And there's Charlize Theron, you know, with the Labrys in that pose. And I was just like, okay, that may be one of the coolest things that's ever happened.
Too cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I got chills from that. That's too cool. That is too cool.
I am so delighted with the movie. Look, it's absolutely for other people to decide if they like it, if they don't. But the casting was perfect. Was perfect. And the chemistry between them is so good that there's at least one scene in the movie where they're just all talking, and you kind of are like, I'd watch this for 2 hours, please. Yes, please. I like this. It's a hoot. And it's such a hoot that, like, the actors, there's an ad lib that made the locked cut. And it is perfectly in character. Like, it's an interaction between two characters. And after it's come out, I will happily tell people all about it. But
you're gonna hold us waiting. All right, fine. Be like that. That's cool. I thought we were homies, Greg. All right.
Yeah. I didn't say we're not homies.
Okay. All right.
I just I am bound by certain contracts that I will not violate for you, sir.
All right. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, true. Yeah.
You gotta hand it to Netflix too, because clearly Greg has seen Old Guard. Think about the obvious, like the Umbrella Academy, and certainly I would say the Marvel shows, they batted over 500. No network is going to bat 1,000. But the other thing is Polar, Victor Santos's wonderful graphic novels that were turned into an excellent crime movie. Wow. And that's what's really great is Netflix is choosing the right people to showrun these things or make these movies. And I know talking to Mark Miller, as I did back in December, everything that Greg is saying about Old Guard, he was saying about Jupiter's Legacy and how great that's
going to be. On Boom on top of that, it's like they know what they're doing.
But I want to clarify something, right? Because Netflix is the distributor.
Okay. Oh, tell us, please. Yeah.
But it was Skydance. It was the people who brought you Mission Impossible.
Oh, cool.
And, the Coen Brothers True Grit. They were the people who got all this going. They were the people who acquired it. They were the people who I worked in development with, I wrote with, who found Gina, right? Found the director. Netflix came into it for this one fairly late. They came in as the studio partner when Charlize came aboard.
Interesting.
But none of this would have happened if not for Skydance and this isn't me calling you out.
No. We want the right story. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is me just really wanting to give credit where credit is due.
100%.
I owe Matt Grimm and Don Granger and Dana Goldberg and David Ellison at Skydance an enormous gratitude.
Cool.
Because frankly, the terms of them acquiring it was I'm writing the draft, and they were like, oh god. So another comic book guy thinks he can write a movie. All right, we'll give it our best shot. But in the back of their head, they're thinking, and then when the draft comes in and it's absolutely horrible, we'll fire him and we'll get a screenwriter.
Yep.
And they had remarkable faith in me that wasn't necessarily warranted. They took a chance.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So, yeah, it's a big deal for me.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
I do. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, there's some questions in the chat that I can kind of summarize dealing with certainly female characters, powerful female characters, and mysteries, noir. You mentioned, Chinatown and a love for mystery. What is it about crime and mysteries and and powerful females that kind of like draws you in, or where did that root?
Yeah, that's not a short answer question. And that's not really one question.
No, it's like 7.
So let's run it from a bunch of different angles. I am not at the, I'm 50 now, and for the last 30 years, I've been trying to figure out, why do I like writing these female characters so much? And I have any number of answers, and all of them or none of them may be correct. I will say there are a couple things that I know as a fact are truths, which is, if you take a scene that we have seen 500 times before and you flip the gender of the protagonist,
changes everything.
Yeah. A femme fatale is a very different interaction for Dex than it is for Philip Marlowe, but its roots are the same, right? And it could end up the same. Yeah, go ahead. But I see you, Oz. Go pour that drink. Yeah, and you'll have time to finish them both. So that's part of it. Part of it is that I genuinely like women. And I feel that women have not been terribly well served in media. Media, as we all know, has predominantly been about white guys. And so I was, as my godfather, the jazz aficionado, would say, I was hip to that fact.
Hey, nice.
I arguably have always, and I say this as an incredibly testosterone heavy, guy, but I think on some level I've always female identified a little more, and I'm not sure where that comes from.
I always have more comfortable, better conversations with females, 9 times out of 10.
And a lot of my closest friendships have been with women.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things go into it. It is easy for me to remember, or no, it is easy for me to forget 20 years on that because the first female protagonist I really wrote was Carrie Stetko, who's the protagonist in Whiteout, but she wasn't in Whiteout when I wrote her the first time. When I wrote her the first time, she was in a one-act play. And then I sort of moved her into a novel that I had been working on. And then from the novel, she made it to Antarctica. And so the result of that was that by the time I got her to Antarctica, I knew her very well. My fourth novel was called Shooting at Midnight. And the previous 3 had followed a character, Atticus, who is the shorthand is he's a bodyguard. He's a personal protection specialist. And there had been this on again, off again love interest, Bridget Logan. And I knew that the 4th book was going to be told from her point of view. And when I resolved to do that, I knew that I was going to be writing in first person. And that meant that I had to know Bridget's voice. And
that's a challenge, yeah.
And to know Bridget's voice, I had to know her.
Mm-hmm. And then you were asking your girlfriend or wife at the time for some advice, right? You had to.
In point of fact, is exactly what I did. Jen was in graduate school at the University of Oregon, and she and a friend of ours who's also in the program at that time, a woman named Daria Penta, got peppered with questions. And at one point, I remember lying on the carpet in our apartment as they were throwing 20 questions at me about Bridget. Like, what does she think about this? And what does she think about that? And I remember Daria saying, does she get cramps? And me going, what?
Oh, that's a thing. I forgot. Yeah.
Not only that, but just like, what? And her response being like, 2 days a month, I get cramps so bad, I just curl up and want to die.
Jesus.
Does she get cramps? And, it's one thing. I don't know. Well, no, I think actually looking back, and I know precisely why. Because it's one thing to intellectually understand that, like, the experience for a guy walking down a street at 3 a.m. alone
completely different.
It's completely different than a woman walking down the street.
Different fears, absolutely.
Exactly. And if you don't see that, I don't know what it's going to take to explain it. That there's the way it is.
Yeah.
That's the problem with the society and how it treats women in a nutshell, right? Guy might get raped, but that threat is not the first thing in their mind.
Right.
I think the thing about that question was it made me aware of Bridget's body in a way that, for lack of a better phrase, I think I had sort of been trying to quarter some level of modesty, right? This woman who doesn't exist except in my head, but that I didn't want to make have to get naked in front of me.
Well, you were thinking about her mentally or emotionally, but not physically as a being.
And not ever having to ask her, how's her period?
Yeah.
Right. But in all sincerity, and if you read the novel, there is a moment in it, because when I sat down to write it, I used to take masking tape and I would write in Sharpie on masking tape, like the thing I needed to remember for the book. And normally it was the phrase, "Right fucking now, asshole." Right? That was literally, and it would be over the computer. So if I sat down, there would be this thing that literally would be saying, if you are not typing 3,000 words a day,
nothing's getting done.
Exactly. You're a failure. If you're playing a game, you're a screw up. And for that book, I wrote, you have to tell the truth. And there's a moment in the book where Bridget is being searched before having to go in to talk to a bad guy. And she's being searched by a horrible sack of, cell function who has made his feelings and intentions towards Bridget plain earlier in the novel. And in this moment, she can't do anything about it. She has to let this happen. She has to be searched. And then it becomes a question, right, of honesty. Because I remember sitting there and going, well, I don't want to do this to her.
But it's real.
I don't want this guy putting his fingers where I know he's going to put them. And then it becomes a question of how does Bridget share that with the reader? What's her honest way? Right? The honest thing is this is the thing that happens in the story. The next honest thing is Bridget's reaction to it. And then the question of how she relates that. And I think that whole process, like if I write women with any degree of honesty, it comes out of writing that novel more than anything else, because most of the time when you're reading about when guys write female protagonists, they go, oh, it's like a guy but with breasts, and that's unfair. But I always get a little leery when I'm answering this question, because I can say all that and all of that is true, but at the same time, gender is not the sole definition of a character, right? We don't say, the thing that defines, Luke Skywalker is male, right? That is an element of the character. That is the character's, identified gender. But that isn't everything that makes a character. Now, if we talk about everything that creates a character, we are talking about, and now we're getting, I'm going to be doing like a hero initiative class on this sort of thing. So this is a little preview of what you get if you're one of the 4 people who signed up for that. But I tend to think of it as biological function. Right? It is a bunch of cellular processes. It is gender is part of it. Hair color is part of it. your religious and spiritual background and your education is part of it. Your favorite books are part of it. Your first kiss are part of it. The first time, somebody said something horrible about you behind your back and you found out about it is part of it. All of these things are part of it. And you don't necessarily have to know the answers to all of them before you start. But you have to know enough about the person that if you are then lying on the floor and somebody is playing 20 questions, you can answer.
That's such a great creative process and how to develop a fully three-dimensional character and to involve people like that doing 20 questions with you. That's really neat.
And then right, and this is the irony, right? And then 99% of that stuff is never going to make it to the page.
Sure. Yeah. Right. This still gives you a more of an understanding of who it is.
Yeah. So. It influences everything that will end up on the page.
Right. Yeah, it makes that honesty work.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, I think I answered 1.5 of the question.
Can you repeat that, John?
You get why I like talking to this guy every 6 months or so.
Oh yeah,
it never ends because it's really he's. Deep thinking is what I look for in my guests, and I mean, so you've been exposed to that.
Yeah, I think too much.
Shut up. That's
and if I remember correctly, the other part of it was I think I went to crime because I like crime. I like crime stories.
Yeah,
that was the genre that got me as a kid. I'm on a Discord server with some friends, and recently. One of them was like, hey, let's talk about our favorite books. We'll pick a genre every day. And they got over to, the last one was magical realism. And I was like, I don't even, it's not that I don't know what the genre is, right? But my passion very early on was detective fiction. I remember being 5 or 6 and having my fingerprinting kit. Cool. and going through my house and dusting for prints. I had that and I had a cowboy outfit. So, clearly I was going to be doing some deducifying.
You were presaging Longmire.
Yeah, I maybe. Cowboy is the one genre that I don't feel I've done well by. So I've got to address that.
Western, and we're waiting for some great Western.
You said Western and crime. Yeah, I immediately thought of the upcoming Brubaker Pulp, and I was like, oh boy, I can't wait for that to come out. And I'd love to see you delve more into some Western stuff. We need more of that.
Well, I got something on the burner that I'm hoping will scratch that itch.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah.
There's several questions in the chat regarding Modesty Blaze. Would you consider writing a Modesty Blaze television series? And then people asking about what Tarantino or they're doing their Gal Gadot casting theories and such.
That'd be great.
Yeah, Gal actually would be pretty awesome. Gal actually would be kind of amazing. And at another point, we would have to talk further about it. I think there have been some issues. I remember talking to somebody or hearing somebody talking about there being great difficulty in actually acquiring the rights to Modesty Blaze.
Interesting.
Hey, Rob. And I don't remember what the details of it are, but yeah, man, come on. How could you? It's Modesty Blaze. I mean, it's Modesty Blaze. I would, that's literally like coming to me and saying, "Would you like to write Zorro?"
Right. Yeah.
Well, yes, I would love to write Zorro. Or would you like to write? How do you feel about doing a Bond movie?
Yeah.
Oh, twist my damn arm.
Yeah.
Let me ask a related question and ask Greg, because one of my favorite runs that he's had both in comics and in novels is Queen and Country.
Yeah.
And are you done with that world, Greg, or not?
It's funny. It's actually really funny. I don't know if you guys noticed this. It kind of gets away from you. I wrote the last Kodiak novel came out in 2010.
Wow.
2009. And I've got notes for the next one, right? I have one that I wanted to write. And I was like, it's 10 years. It's 10 years. I can do something with that, right? I can actually use that. Where QNC ended up in a place where I could come back to it on the calendar.
Oh,
I would
nice.
need
Yeah.
I would need to explain what Tara has been doing for the last decade, because she hasn't been DOPS for the last decade. Because there's no way she would have survived that long in the job. And I have some notes for like, I know the shape of that return. I know what that series is. My problem, honestly, is writing it in this moment. Like, if you ask me to write it today, I don't even fucking know.
Got to get back into the mindset, study the characters again, who they are. Yeah.
No, it's not that. It's that the political landscape is so radically altered. What does it mean to be an SIS in a Brexit Britain under Boris Johnson?
Yeah.
What does it mean to be in SIS with Donald Trump in the White House and the damage that has been done to the intelligence community, right? I don't even know what that story looks like. I genuinely don't.
Sure.
Now, that said, if you ask me to write it in 2021, I might have a much better idea. It'll depend on what it looks like, because I know what it looks like after this moment.
Sure.
Right? I know what it's got to look like if Trump leaves office, and that's arguably a huge if.
Right.
Yep.
And you get an actual working intelligence apparatus again, and one that actually has faith in its executive, and so on. Because right now, the CIA doesn't trust him.
Right.
There's just no way. Because he's made it clear, one, he can't keep a secret.
Yeah.
Two, whether or not he's compromised, fine, but he may be, right? Because he was letting people into the Oval Office that he shouldn't have been.
Yeah. Want to look at this? Look at my laptop right now.
So, well, I mean,
That's a great impression, John. Wow.
that was really unpleasant.
That was surreal. I had to look over and make sure you
Yeah,
wasn't actually.
and my blood pressure jumped. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, buddy. I'm sorry.
I was like, oh,
Deep breaths. Deep breaths.
he's listening.
But you see what I mean? I don't know what that. The more interesting story is, what is it like to be CIA, special projects right now?
No kidding.
I don't imagine that's fun. But like I said, you asked me to write that in July of 2021.
Right.
I know exactly what that story is.
Because it's the relation to reality. It's the relation to the world we're living. You can't.
And that's what
you can't fictionalize this and
Right.
fairy tale this. Yeah.
And that's what QNC always was. QNC always had to cleave very close to reality, because that's where its verisimilitude lied.
Damn straight.
I love this comment. I thought I was the only cowboy Sherlock Holmes as a kid. So there you go. You
weren't alone. You weren't. I had the little cap gun, 6 guns, and
that's awesome.
I had all of it, man.
I love things coming out on their anniversary. I had a flashback to Twin Peaks, The Return. It's like it's happening again. I love it when things like that happen.
Yeah, I would love to do it. My favorite Monk album, probably Underground.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
talk about your jazz collection. I'm a huge Sun Ra fan. I love the avant-garde. I was lucky enough to see the kind of new version with the new head guy in charge on tour. I would say 2 years ago. Never thought I'd ever see the orchestra ever in my life, and so I was just like, holy cow! That was just such a treat. I love Sun Ra. He's probably my favorite avant-garde jazz musician.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got man, I obviously, this is obviously somebody who's been watching me on Instagram. I love Monk is absolutely my favorite.
I would say if I was a rapper, a hip hop artist, with jazz samples, like early '90s stuff, I would be called Felonious Drunk. It has to play on that. Yeah, I love Felonious Monk as well. Yeah,
I'm trying to find. like I know it's on the shelf somewhere, but yeah, I think probably Underground's my favorite. I just and it may simply be just for that album cover. If somebody could, I mean, if we could throw it up there, yes. And I love Kamasi. I mean, for the current stuff, but it's funny. I've been trying to track down. Blossom Dearie albums.
Okay.
Like I grew up. That was how I got into jazz. My the Godfather I mentioned prior.
Yeah.
Used to give me cassettes that he would record of all of his vinyl back in the day.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he gave me Bobby Dorough and Dave Frischberg and Blossom Dearie because of the Schoolhouse Rock connection.
Neat. Yeah, that's great.
And so that he very cleverly gatewayed me in that way. And I played saxophone for a while.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and I'm, in that way, I there's a lot of avant-garde stuff I love.
Please tell me you know the Kenny G riff. I wouldn't help I couldn't help myself if I had a saxophone. I'd have to figure that out. I'd have to. I'd be walking around the mall playing everywhere I go. Yeah.
No, it was mostly when the Saints Go Marching In. And believe it or not, the Rainbow Connection can be played on tenor saxophone.
Oh,
interesting.
Wow.
I don't know why we had the sheet music in my home. So my dad wasn't a Marine. My dad had been in the Army, but he wasn't a Marine. We had the Marine Corps anthem, from the halls of Montezuma. I would play that a lot too. And I had a Sesame Street songbook. I played like everything out of that thing. I don't even know why we had it, but I had that. Lester Bowie, I love Coltrane.
Sure.
Yeah, Coltrane. Yeah.
I love Coltrane. So
I say modern day, I think these guys are crushing it. Bad, not good. They're a bunch of kids, and they do a lot of collaborations with hip hop artists as well. They recently did a.
I'm writing it down.
Bad, not good.
Okay.
They're fantastic. This new album 4 has some great hits. It's this really new, refreshing spin on jazz. But their hip hop collaborations are fantastic. They did one with Ghostface Killah 2 years ago. The instrumentals on that are incredible as well. Great new stuff.
Love it. All right. Well, we're gonna have to trade playlists after this.
Oh, man! My career. I work for record labels for more than a decade. Right now, I'm in a death metal, extreme metal record label. But prior to that, for 10 years, I was at a garage psychedelic plus vinyl distributor. So we had a lot of jazz, a lot of everything.
I couldn't help but notice that he's got Chinatown, and I see the slice of vinyl there, and I keep looking to the right because here we go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you got cases.
There's records and so on.
I got a little more down here as well. Yeah. I ran out of room. That's my thing with comic books and vinyl. I love to collect them. There's only so much room though.
It takes a lot of space.
Yeah, you can't see, but I've literally in the last year have had to move shelves of books off my bookshelves, and they're now stacked on the floor to make room for the vinyl.
Yep.
Because it sort of started with me going, we speak the same language.
Yes.
Like I say, I'm 50. So I grew up, all my initial music was on vinyl. Then it shifted to CD. And then a lot of the vinyl I had, my brother took.
Okay.
Because he was smarter than me. And he realized this is good stuff. I'm holding. So the last year has been me sort of steadily trying to track down things that I had and also
I know that feeling.
Expand the things,
the toys and all that. Oh yeah, I know that. I know that feeling because I never had that stuff as a kid, so now I'm getting it now.
Dude, that is exactly why there was a period shortly after I started when I was getting really regular work for DC. Yeah, you can't see it because I cleaned it up, but if you could get the full view of the office, there are way too many Star Wars toys in here for a guy who's 50. Way too many Star Wars toys for a guy who's 50.
Regarding vinyl, I spent a good portion of time in music radio, both college and afterwards, 10 years at the alternative rock station.
Yeah,
and I got
right.
so many great radio rarity vinyl that I just got tired of moving my wall of vinyl from apartment to apartment. I purged it all. I know I'm in the same boat as Greg. Now it's all about reclaiming that stuff.
Yeah.
And the radio rarities are hard.
Yeah.
I'm a loony and I still buy cassettes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a different depth there because I found recently some old cassettes and
cool.
Yeah, literally the magnetic tape turned to dust.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was like,
for me,
that was a waste. That's transient media.
We had live concerts at our rock station that went back to the 70s, and they were on reel-to-reel tape.
They were on reel-to-reel.
And we were digitizing. Yeah, we were digitizing our archive. And literally one concert, I can't remember what the band was, but it was definitely from the mid-70s. The tape was flaking as we were recording to digital. And luckily we had great sound engineers that could, salvage it. But yeah, literally I saw it dissolving, while we were transferring.
I got some crazy bootlegs from reel to reels. I got a Black Sabbath live in Pittsburgh, 1969. Because I live in Pittsburgh right now, so I was like, I had to track this one down. It used to be called Paradox back in the day, and they changed the title and changed the art. But I love bootlegs. You can't buy them on Discogs anymore. They took it down. I think they got bought out by bigger companies that stopped all bootlegs. Man, it's super hard to track down some cool live stuff now, man.
Where? Because I do a lot of. All right, yeah. Everybody else, you can leave now.
Yeah, sorry. We're
just talking vinyl collection.
You just become best friends. Yep.
Yeah. I've been spending a lot of time on Discogs, but I'm curious where else to be looking. Because there have to be other places. So.
Yeah,
I'll have to visit my old throwback places, and I'll let you know. I'll give you a selection of what I know is available, and see if you're interested in stuff, and I'll mail you some cool stuff, man.
Yeah. The thing, and it's funny, a lot of the self-isolation has been. It's not radically different from the way I normally live, right? Because I get up in the morning and I have my coffee and I go down to the office and I work.
The writer's life is very quarantine-ish,
But excuse me, but the exercise, on those days that I'm not running, I like to take these long walks, and part of the procedure for the last 6 months has been on those days where I'm walking. I walk to the different record stores, right?
Cool,
and if I do the circuit, it's a good 5 mile walk.
Oh, nice.
And I can come back with a couple albums. Clean
I got the arms from carrying them. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh no, I got smart after a while.
Got the
brought
bag?
my own tote bag. And when my son's going to college just outside of New York City, so like when I go to New York, that's part of the trip. Is like, and then I'm going to walk down and I'll do academy there, and then I'll do the other academy, and then loop around. Yeah, it is. That is something I've actually been missing.
Sure.
I miss seeing people. I haven't seen Bendis in like 3 months. I haven't seen Fraction in 2 at this point. I miss that freedom very much, but I can endure that because there's communication. The thing I'm finding very challenging at this point now is that those things that I took as comforts, and took as that started as comforts, and that eventually became things I was taking for granted. And now I am very aware of how much I take them for granted. And I go out, I'm still walking. I'll take the dog out. I'll walk a couple miles with the dog, or I'll just walk a couple miles by myself, for the exercise. And I will pass by these places and they're closed. And the ache, wondering if they're going to come back.
Yeah.
That is actually that's been very poignant for me.
Yes.
Those are the moments for me where I'm like, yeah, this is not. And like I say, I'm extraordinarily fortunate. I can endure this. I'm
Same.
lucky.
Yeah. Same.
And
I feel so bad for my friends that are losing their jobs or don't have money, and I'm here working for a record label, working overtime, and so I try to help out my friends when I can, or where I can. It's just very unfortunate to see this happening to so many people.
How do I approve that? I agree, Java.
Yeah, I was going to say that's one of the things we were really excited about doing this Comic-Con was the fact that we were inviting a lot of LCSs to come on and talk about the pages where they're selling things and hopefully creating some income revenues for the shops.
And the thing about your comic book store is a comic book store is a community center.
Absolutely.
It is a place where you go and you are going to find people who share your passion, who share your community. And everything else may be different, where they're from, their political views, religious views, all of it may be different. But you're still going to be able to walk in there and everybody's going to go like, yeah, I like this medium. I like this art form. I like these books. I like these stories. I love this character, right? If you love this character, have you read this? And that engagement, that community is, the best comic book stores are these incredibly welcoming places. They're a place where you will belong.
It's an exchange of ideas. It's like a salon, like what used to be literally. And then I know that sounds so highfalutin to say.
But it's perfectly like male. We were talking about gender roles, right? This is the male version of a salon.
Well, no, but I'm actually talking about old school salon in terms of prior to
like
media.
The Parisian salon or the
an exchange of ideas, and really people thinking in similar ways, but again, exchanging different viewpoints about the same things.
Yeah,
and so no, but by all means, put some hair dryers in there and some curlers.
I'm saying,
why not?
Well, but I mean, but that is kind of what they grow into, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You have comic book stores that they have gaming areas,
book clubs, gaming areas.
Exactly. They have Magic the Gathering nights or Star Wars miniature nights or book clubs, or I mean, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah, they all buy tickets for the first night of a midnight.
We're all going to go to see the movie. Exactly. We're all going to go to the opening show.
And that's the best stores. You're right.
Yeah, Gabby's Olympic Cards and Comics in Lacey, invariably, for the new Marvel movie or the new Star Wars or whatnot, they take, they buy out the theater. And all the staff and they pay for it, right? It's
that's wonderful. That's awesome.
And it's that's at our best, that's what we've got. We've got this community that is so welcoming.
Yes.
And at its worst, we've got a community where you walk in and you get side-eyed and people sneer at you and go like, "Oh, you like that? They suck," or whatnot.
Yep.
There's plenty of books out there I hate, but that doesn't mean somebody shouldn't love them.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just not for your taste. Yeah.
It just because it ain't my bag doesn't mean it shouldn't be anybody's bag.
Yeah, my bag, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, perfectly said. Yeah. It's getting really late. Is there one last question, John, that maybe you wanted to get to? I know you had a bunch of talking points.
Did we miss other
I think
questions?
you guys covered it. And, as far as me goes, no, I think this was a great discussion, and it's exactly
who's the better
discussion that Greg and I always have. So
I was going to say, who's the better Teen Titan? That's not for me, clearly.
I saw that one.
That is not for me.
We don't do that. We don't do that on Word Balloon. No.
Yeah.
I really want to thank you, Greg, for coming and doing this and helping us support all these causes. And
it's been an incredible pleasure. I'm presuming you'll be doing it again. So. You know what, John can facilitate. You guys should not have any trouble reaching me. And as I understand it, I'm not really going anywhere for a while. So. It has been a genuine pleasure. And really nice to meet you both.
Likewise.
I know him.
Exactly.
Actually, I suppose I got to do it this way because
totally.
So I know that guy there.
Yeah.
So,
No.
I will definitely get you a list of some cool bootleg stuff
Please
that I
do,
know is
man.
available, and I'll forward that to John, and you'll forward that to you.
There
that
you
would
go,
be awesome.
Sure.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, and everybody who hung out and asked questions. I very much appreciate it. And if your question was missed, I apologize. So,
Well, we'll just have to do it again sometime and make sure that we get those questions answered.
we'll have to make it right.
Absolutely. And tomorrow, and thank you, Greg. Yeah. So
You can sign them out. Should I leave the studio? I'll leave the studio.
as you wish.
All right.
I just want
As
to
you
take
wish.
Thank you.